Part 35. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 341. Chapter 341 White Lotus. Xiao Lu was still scratching his head, very puzzled. The fourth sister was like this before, so why didn't she gain weight? Instead, the brother-in-law left and the fourth sister gained weight. Could it be that the fourth sister was alone and sad, so she went into self-imposed exile and indulged in eating and drinking? After Xiaoliu made up his mind automatically, his voice was choked up, "Fourth sister, let's go, I'll go with you to relax." Relax? What did Xiaoliu think of to ask her to relax? Seeing that she looked like she was about to cry, what did she mean? This silly thought jumped so fast, where did it go? Okay, Yuan put away the storage bag, closed the door and followed Xiaoliu out. At the door, I happened to see Yu Heiran coming back. Xiao Sier, what are you doing? Yu Heiran opened his eyes wide and stared at Yuan's swollen belly in disbelief. It's already 4 or 5 months old, right? Yuan nodded towards him. Finally, there was someone who was not naive anymore. She gestured with a 7, indicating 7 months. Oh my god, Yu Heiran was shocked. He only found out today that his fourth son was 7 months pregnant. 7? Fourth sister, what do you mean? Xiao Lu was confused. You idiot, your fourth sister is 7 months pregnant, help her back quickly. Yu Heiran knocked her head off, but the girl still couldn't understand that she was pregnant. Huh? Xiaoliu looked confused again, and then her face turned red. She thought the fourth sister had gained weight. She smiled coquettishly and hurriedly helped Yuan back. Let's go for a walk, Yuan said, pulling Xiao Lu. Hey, fourth sister, let's go back, Xiao Lu laughed dryly and shrank her neck. How dare she take fourth sister for a walk under the power of her elder brother? She didn't dare. What she was sure of was that if she took fourth sister out, not even a stone would be able to protect her. Eldest brother is very domineering right now. Xiao Seer, please go back and tell me what you need. Yu Heiran turned around and said gently. Xiao Lu covered her mouth and looked at Yu Heiran in surprise. The big brother who was so fierce to her just now turned into a gentle big brother in the blink of an eye. She is so jealous. Well, she can also get pregnant, so that her elder brother won't be so cruel to her. Haha, this is a good idea. Okay, Yuan nodded and followed Yu Heiran back to her own room. She knew that her days of ease were over and the days of restraint had come. However, she liked her brother's love for her very much. Yu Heiran sent her back and said a lot of nos before leaving. In the past, when Feng was pregnant with Juner and Yeer, she also liked to listen to it close to her belly like this. Ha ha ha, Yuan looked at this naive sister and successfully made her laugh again. It is really not that easy for monks to give birth to babies. Female monks are not like ordinary women, and the end comes on time every month. Female nuns are different. Some come once a year, some only come once every few years, and some only come once every 10 years. How can they get pregnant? Fourth sister, why are there 2 fetal sounds? Xiaoliu jumped up in surprise. Yes, 2. Hey, I'll go back and give birth to the baby too. Xiaoliu had finished playing and saw that she looked a little tired. After a while, he covered her with a quilt, quietly closed the door and left. In Yu Heiran's room, he was sitting cross-legged on the bed, thinking that he should tell Mujukan about the fourth son's pregnancy. They, the elder brothers, could not take care of her 12 hours a day. As for Xiaoliu, let's forget it, she's just a little girl who doesn't understand anything. With the excuse of taking care of you, you won't be able to practice properly. Thinking of Yuan's current situation, he must go to the secular world. If they can take the opportunity to repair their relationship, maybe Mujukin's state of mind can be healed without medicine. Having made up his mind, he took out the transmission notes and gave one to each of the second and third children. Then he packed up his things and ran out of the door towards the city gate. In the secular world, in the valley, as soon as Mujukin got up, he heard someone coming. In the past 6 months, he has never practiced cultivation. He practices at sunrise and rests at sunset every day. His mood felt a lot better inexplicably. He just thought of Wanner in the world of immortality. He was always very entangled. There seemed to be a voice telling him not to think about her. Isn't it good to live like this? Outside the door, Mu Shui came over with a bowl of lotus seed porridge. She knocked on the door. "Second brother, are you up?" Mujukin heard Mu Shui's voice. He quickly put on his clothes and opened the door. "Thank you, Sister Shui, for bringing breakfast to my second brother every day. You don't have to go to such trouble." "It doesn't matter whether I eat or not." Mujukin took the bowl and ignored the strange look in Mu Shui's eyes. She smiled sweetly at Mujukin. "It's okay, second brother, my sister likes this." "Like it?" Mujukin frowned slightly. He raised his eyes and glanced at Mugxiu for a few times. He only saw the deep admiration in her eyes and nothing else. Does he feel something is wrong? Mujukin lowered his eyes and his face became gloomy as he said, "Sister Shui, please don't send me any more. Your third and fourth brothers will be jealous if you hear this. He is a cousin, but not a real brother, so why should he be so attentive when he has nothing to do? What does he have that she covets?" Mugxiu's sweet smile faltered. She hummed in a grieved manner, lowered her head and walked away. I really felt pity for that little look. Mujukin looked at her with his mouth open. He was speechless. Did he say the wrong thing? As if he really bullied her, why didn't he find out before that this Mu Shui was the Balian in Wanner's mouth? Oh, by the way, Balian means to pretend to be weak in front of you, but you don't know how cruel she is behind your back. Just why did Mu Shui pretend to be a white lotus in front of him? Mujukin went back to the house and sat down to eat the bowl of lotus seed porridge, but he thought it was brought by Mu Shui. He didn't think it tasted good, so he left it there without bothering to care. On the way back, Mugxiu still lowered her head and returned to the house aggrievedly. After turning on the formation, she changed from her previous weakness. She picked up the teacup on the table and threw it on the ground. Bang, debris all over the ground. At this time, her face was distorted, and her originally beautiful face was twisted into the face of a complete old witch. She roared in her heart. She was not their biological sister. Did she think she wouldn't know if he kept it from her? Can't she like the second brother? But hasn't the second brother left that now? Just come back, so that you can have a chance to strike again. How can her Lixinsan be cured by elixirs? This is when she was in Xianling continent. She once went out for training and accidentally saved a witch cultivator. In order to repay her, the witch cultivator gave her some life-saving witch medicine prescriptions. One of these prescriptions is a witchcraft medicine called Lixin powder. This medicine has an unexpected destructive effect on the monk's state of mind, causing the monk's state of mind to collapse when faced with the things he least wants to do. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 342. Chapter 342 Mu Shui's Life Experience. It has been so long since the last time the medicine was administered, and now the eldest brother has really fallen out with that bitch, which means that the witch medicine has already taken effect. Hee. It's almost time to do it a second time. After 3 times, the second brother will almost give up on cultivating immortality. She has no interest in cultivating immortals and just wants to live with her second brother. This is just right. No one here dares to laugh at them. If someone doesn't like her, then she doesn't mind giving them a ride. Why do 2 people work for so long? After Mugzio figured it out, he used several cleaning techniques to clean the ground. He returned to his usual innocent look and cooked a good meal for his second brother at noon. Mujukin went out and flew towards Xiaoqingshan with his sword. There were still more than 10 acres of land to be weeded today. Second uncle, you're here. As soon as Mujukin landed, a beautiful girl of 4 or 5 years old with a bun and a pink skirt ran towards her. Slow down, do you miss your second uncle? Mujukin picked her up and pinched her little nose and asked. The little girl nodded her head. Yes, Bauer misses his second uncle every day. Bauer, come down quickly, you're pestering your second uncle again. At this moment, a beautiful woman in her 20s dressed in simple clothes walked out of the house and scolded Bauer. Sister-in-law, everything is okay. Where is brother? Mujukin carried Bauer to his sister-in-law, Mu Yang. Mu Yang took Bauer and said, the father and son are in retreat. Is there anything important? How about I call him? Mujukin waved his hand and said, it's okay. I'll just ask. I went to weed. After saying that, he went down from the mountain to the middle of the mountain and found the land where he wanted to weed. Mu Yang shook his head. His brother-in-law was the first to start cultivating immortals back then, and he even tricked the whole family into coming to this unfamiliar place. Now I don't want to become an immortal anymore, I really don't understand who he is, and I don't even want my wife. Thinking of this, she glanced at the room where her husband and son lived, sighed, and returned to the house. Mujukin went back after eating grass all morning. When he first arrived, he saw the pretty Mu Shui standing at the door with a food box, waiting. Seeing him coming back, she ran towards him happily. Second brother, you are back. Look, I cooked your favorite dish for you at noon. Mujukin glanced at her lightly, arrived at Uncle Mu's house in the blink of an eye, opened the door and went straight in. Leave Mu Shui messy in the wind and petrified there. Uncle Mu and Mrsu were eating. Seeing Mujukin come in, Mrsu quickly got up, went to the kitchen to get a pair of bowls and chopsticks, put the rice on it and put it in front of him. Why did you come here at noon today? Mrsu asked. Didn't my son have the girl Mugzio bringing him food every day? Mom, tell your uncle and aunt that Mu Shui won't bring me food every day. Mujukin picked up the bowl and said lightly. What's wrong? Mrsu turned her head and asked him in confusion, ignoring the full name of Mugzio called today. Mom, is Mugzio my second uncle's biological child? Mrsu choked. Uncle Mu glared at him, what are you talking about? Why is he not his biological son? After speaking, he quickly expressed his gratitude to Mrsu. Mrsu choked and coughed. Huh? Why do you ask like that? What happened? Uncle Mu asked gossiping. Does that girl have someone she likes? Otherwise, the brat told Schwetter not to bring him food. Are you worried that the boy will be jealous? Mujukin, Dad, why is your brain so hard to use? What are you thinking about? Mujukin rolled his eyes at his father and said, I just don't let her come to deliver food to me. It seems that after I came back, she was very happy and took the initiative to deliver food to me every day. Isn't this bad? She is your sister. Shouldn't a sister be happy to see her brother come back? Uncle Mu knocked him on the head and said that he did not know what was good or bad. Mrsu calmed down now, and she took a serious look at her son. How about you go to Wanner's place? Mrsu asked him. Mujukin didn't say a word and left after eating. You don't know what's going on with this child, Mrsu looked at his back and sighed. It doesn't matter what he does, let him do it, Uncle Mu said disdainfully. Dad came back and said something was wrong with him. Is it serious? Mrsu asked worriedly. Humph, what's the problem? Why don't I have any problem? Dad has no problem even at his age. He's the only one who poops and urinates a lot every day. Uncle Mu grunted again and went out, but he still took a look at his son's house with his consciousness. Mrsu put away the dishes and hurriedly ran to find Mrsmuer. Sister-in-law, why do you come here to see me when you have time? Mrsmuer enthusiastically welcomed Mrsu into the house. You're here and you're still asking? Mrsu gave her a look. Sit down, let me make tea for you. Mrsmuer rushed to Xiao Xiao, and quickly pushed Mrsu onto the stool and sat down. Mrsu watched her busy work with a smile, and at the same time looked at her eyebrows carefully, thinking of Mrsmuer when she was young, and what Mu Shue looked like now. After careful comparison, there really is no similarity. I used to think that Mu Shue looked a bit like Mr. Mu, but now his face has become more and more beautiful, and there is no trace of the Mu family at all. Sister-in-law, what are you thinking about? When Mrsmuer put the tea in front of Mrsu, Mrsu didn't even notice. Oh, I was thinking about something just now. Sister-in-law Ruyan, Mrsmu's second wife's maiden name, asked you, is Shue your biological child? What? Mrsmuer panicked. She stood up, looked around, closed the door tightly, and then sat back down. Her reaction like this doesn't mean anything? Mrsu's face immediately turned ugly. Sister-in-law, who did you listen to? Mrsmuer sat down and asked quietly, with a nervous look on her face. Mrsu glanced at her and said directly, Bengguan, how did I know this? I'm afraid this child knows that he is not your biological child. He has been getting in front of Chenner for the past 6 months. You know this, so watch her closely, don't make a joke then, they are still cousins in name. She will not allow anyone to ruin the relationship between her son and her daughter-in-law. Wanner has always been a good person, how can she be wronged? This, Mrsmuer's expression also changed. She didn't know that such a thing had happened, which surprised her. Alas! Sister-in-law, this child is pitiful to say the least. That year I followed my second brother to guard the border. On New Year's Day, we said we would go out for a walk. As soon as I opened the door, there was a red swaddling clothes outside the door, and inside was Shue. Looking at her little face was red from the cold, but she didn't cry. When she saw us, her little mouth burst out into laughter. Seeing how cute and destined we were to have this child, we said she was the one who gave birth to her and we kept her. Mrsmuer also sighed, how could such a thing happen now? You know, she was not adopted in the first place. This adoption also brought disaster. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 343. Chapter 343. Yuhairan arrives. She was not unwilling to be divorced from her sister-in-law. Over the years, they had long been like sisters. Mrsu frowned tightly at this time. She was not surprised. When her son asked this, it must be almost true. This is actually the case today. No wonder the child targeted her son. But she grew up in the Mu family and knew the rules of the Mu family. Men of the Mu family were not allowed to take concubines. What does this Mugzio want to do? Mrsu picked up the tea and took a sip, feeling worried. Sister-in-law, I will talk to Shue about this matter. Don't worry. Mrsmuer saw Mrsu's worried look and hurriedly comforted her. Mrsu nodded and said, well, you should think about this matter before talking about it. Don't expose it first. Girls are very thin-skinned. I'm afraid she will do something irrational. That is the daughter I have held in my hand for so many years. I don't feel sorry for her. If this is true, then what is this child thinking? Oh. Mrsmuer was a little annoyed when she thought about it. How could she not like or not fall in love with a married man? Aren't there 2 brothers above her, and U11 and the others. U1 is her serious second sister-in-law. She just went to the world of immortality, but it doesn't mean she won't come back. Moreover, she still has several brothers and sisters from her mother's family, many apprentices, and even an old man. Anyone can kill her without any effort. This kid has cultivated himself so much that he doesn't even know how much he weighs. Hey, Muer gets a headache when she thinks about this. No wonder, that child brings food to Chenner every day. Why don't you see her giving it to Leonor and Uer? He is the brother who holds her in the palm of his hand and cares for her. Muer was in no mood to talk to Mrsu. She sent Mrsu away and walked directly into Myeoksu's yard. In Myeoksu's room, she was staring at the food box on the table with ruthlessness in her eyes. When she was about to get up, she heard someone coming outside, and she immediately put the food box into her storage bag. He opened the door and immediately put on a sweet smile and shouted, "Mom, why are you here?" Mrsu looked at her with a look that was not as doting as usual, but even with a hint of disgust. I used to think this face was cute, but now I feel very uncomfortable looking at it. She entered the room and sat at the table. She pointed to the stool in front of her and said, "Schwerer, do it. Mom is here to ask you something today." Myeoksu closed the door, put away her sweet smile, and said coldly, "Mom is here to question me, right? Ask me why I know I'm not your biological child. Ask me why I like my second brother, right? You." Mrsu was so angry with her that she actually said it openly, which completely overturned his understanding of Myeoksu. What your auntie said is really true. You still have to be shameless. After all, he is your second brother in name. You are committing incest. You know that your second brother has one second sister-in-law. How can you her? There are so many brothers and sisters in my mother's family, I can kill you with just one finger. Mrsu glared at Myeoksu angrily. She still hoped that she could stop the situation. After all, the matter had just been discovered. There have been no irreversible consequences. But Myeoksu said disdainfully, so what if he has a second sister-in-law? Can they still be together? Don't you think the second brother is back? And why can't I like him? He is not my biological second brother. We are not in the Great Yan Empire, so who knows if we are brothers and sisters? Myeoksu stared at Mrsu for a long time without fear. Mrsu was shocked by her words. "Crazy, you are really crazy." Myeoksu squinted at Mrsu with a look as if anyone who dared to block her way would be killed even if the King of Heaven came. Mrsu stared blankly at Myeoksu like this, so strange and scary. She really suspected that Myeoksu had been taken away from her. Her Schwerer is so well behaved, so gentle and kind. This must not be her. She took a deep look at Myeoksu. This child had grown so stunning inadvertently in the past few years. But no matter what, she couldn't let the toad want to eat the swan meat. Myeoksu also wanted it. The old man was not here, so he had to beat her to death because of his temper. She left with a few words to take care of herself and left. Suppose the mother and daughter are at loggerheads. Myeoksu saw Mrsu walking away angrily, and she suppressed the impulse in her heart. To be honest, she didn't have the guts to take action at this time. She had to do it when everyone was relaxed. She had been keeping to herself in the past few days. Half a month passed in a flash, and one day an unexpected person came to the valley. Uharan came directly to Myeoksu's door, knocked on the door but he was not there, took out the transmission note and sent a transmission message directly to him. Myeoksu, who was taking care of the crops, felt the vibration of the transmission note. He immediately took out his spiritual consciousness to check and found that it was Uharan who was back. The first thing he thought of was that something was wrong with Wanur. He put the into his storage bag, and then Ujian returned to the valley. Yu jumped off the flying sword, went straight to Yu Heiran, and asked anxiously, "Brother, has something happened to Wan'er?" Seeing that he was so anxious, Yu Heiran felt a little less angry no matter how angry he was. He said, "Let's go into the room and talk." Mujukan nodded and cast a magic spell to open the formation. There was something about Mugzio before, and the formation was always open no matter where he was. The two of them entered the room, and Mujukan couldn't wait to ask again, "Brother, tell me quickly, has something happened to Wan'er? How could he come back?" When he left, he told Wan'er to come back to him if anything happened. Could it be that something really happened to Wan'er? Sit down first, I'm afraid you'll be excited after hearing this. I just don't know if you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Mujukan sat down uneasily. Yu Heiran sighed and said, "Hey, you know that you can't let go of Xiao Sier, but you still treat you two so badly. Do you know? Xiao Sier is pregnant. It was already 7 months old when I left. Count now. It has been 7.5 months. The reason I came back is to ask you to follow me back to take care of her. How can we grown men take care of her?" What? Wan'er is pregnant. Mujukan stood up suddenly, staring at Yu Heiran with two bright eyes, and asked incredulously. This news came so suddenly, and my wife was so pleasantly surprised. Mujukan didn't know what to do. He kept circling around the room. Let's go now." Mujukan finally calmed down, and he mentioned Yu Heiran and wanted to leave. "If you want to leave, you have to tell your parents, and your grandpa," Yu Heiran blocked him. "Oh, look, I am so happy that I have forgotten all about this, and it also makes them happy." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 344. Chapter 344. Mugzio follows. After saying that, he got out like the wind. Yu Heiran looked at his back and shook his head. What a happy couple. Hope that the fourth child's pregnancy can be used to ease the relationship between them. After a while, Mujukan came back, followed by Uncle Mu and Mrsu. As soon as the two entered the house, Mrsu immediately took Yu Heiran's hand and asked, "Brother Wan'er, it's such an important thing for Wan'er to be pregnant. How about my father and I go there? When the birth comes, you guys, what should a man do if he doesn't understand?" Yu Heiran was speechless. He really didn't expect that when Xiao Sier gave birth, people said that a woman giving birth was like going to the gates of hell. He agreed without thinking. They are all grown men, so it is really inconvenient. You should really let Xiao Sier, an experienced mother-in-law, go with her. Besides, Mrsu treats Xiao Sier well. Then uncle and aunt, let's go get ready first. We'll get up soon, and we'll be delayed for half a month on the road. Okay, let's go right away. Mrsu pulled Uncle Mu, who was still standing stupidly, and the two of them quickly went to clean up. Mujukan, let alone Mujukan, was always in a state of excitement. He kept rubbing his hands and walking around the room with his hands and feet. He didn't even know what he was going to do. Don't be nervous. You are so nervous like this. What will you do when you see Xiao Sier? Yu Heiran really couldn't bear to see him like this. Oh, Mujukan sat down and took a few gulps of water from the table before he calmed down. Yu Heiran looked at him with a smile. A grown man didn't know what to be pretentious about. He went back and asked Xiao Sier to deal with him. Second brother, are you going to the world of immortality? At this time, Mugzio ran over panting and asked eagerly. As soon as Mujukan saw her coming, he felt bad. His eyes narrowed and he said impatiently, "Where do I need to tell you where I am going?" Second brother, I don't mean that. I just want to go with you. Mushui waved her hands repeatedly, her little face seemed to be frightened by Mujukan, ashen. I won't take it, Mujukin refused directly. Brother Yu, can you take me with you? Mu Shue turned around and walked up to Yu Heiran and asked pitifully. Yu Heiran was looking at it meaningfully, but why did the target suddenly shift to his head? He turned to look at Mujukin, who lowered his head. What did they mean? Aren't they cousins? Why does it look like adultery? That's really the case. If you take it through, you won't cause trouble with Xiao Sier. He shook his head and said, Miss Mu, I didn't bully you, let alone take you away. Mr. Mu won't chop me up when he comes back. Such a girl who is usually quiet and unremarkable, he has not seen her for a while, so he was impressed. Such a strong smell of white lotus. After hearing this, Mu Shue felt as if she had been hit. She swayed, bit her lip, and walked away aggrievedly. Just at this time, Uncle Mu and Mrsu came over in a hurry and met face to face. Uncle and Aunt, please take me there with you. Please, I won't cause any trouble to you. Mu Shue grabbed Mrsu's hand as if grabbing a life-saving straw. Mrsu was still immersed in the joy of Yuan's pregnancy, when someone suddenly appeared and grabbed her, startling her. When she saw that it was Mixue, her face fell instantly. What was Mixue doing today? She shook Mixue's hand several times without shaking it off. Mixue is a monk, how can she get rid of him? Mixue, let go of your eldest aunt's hand. How do you behave like this? Go back quickly, Uncle Mu shouted sternly. What a big deal this is. Ever since they knew what Mixue was thinking, the whole family did not want to see her and kept away from her. Now you are still asking to go to the world of immortal cultivation with them. Why are you going there? Are you going to cause trouble for my little girl Wan? Is his old man that stupid? Mu Shue had to put down Mrsu's hand. She looked at the two of them fiercely and ran away. Mrsu was horrified by her look. She looked at Mixue's back suspiciously. She was sure that Mixue had been snatched away by someone. She looked at her son in the room worriedly. When Mujukin and Yu Heiran saw them arriving, they also came out of the house. Mujukin closed the door smoothly. Let's go, Yu Heiran said, and then summoned the flying sword. Uncle Mu and Mujukin also used flying swords at the same time. Mother, I will take you. Mrsu nodded and stood on Mujukin's flying sword. So the three of them took off and flew towards Juya Forest. Just after they flew away, Mu Shue followed them with a flying sword with a gloomy look on his face, but only followed from a distance. In the past 6 months, she has not found a chance to administer the medicine again, and she also knows that Mujukin has been avoiding her. If she didn't follow him this time, she would have no chance in the future, so she had to follow them no matter what this time. The four of them came to the Juya forest and prepared to enter. Second brother, wait for me. Suddenly Mu Shue's voice sounded behind them. Mujukin's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He stared hard at Mu Shue, who was wielding the sword. He clenched his hands into fists and really wanted to punch him. Uncle Mu saw him and pulled his sleeves, so he didn't swing them out. Mrsu also looked back at Mixue, who had fallen from the sky, her eyes filled with disgust. This man was really getting more and more outrageous. Even if her son liked her, she would not agree. What kind of virtue is there? There is no reserve or self-cultivation of a girl's family at all. It is a waste to grow up in Mu's house. Yu Heiran could see from the expressions of Mujukin's family that they didn't like Mixue very much. He didn't know what happened between them, but it was definitely not a good thing. Uncle Mu was so angry that his beard was standing on end. He lowered his face and said in a deep voice, "You are a girl and a whole family is following you here. How can we explain to your parents what happened? There are no rules at all." Mu Shue came down and stood in front of them with her head lowered. She didn't take it seriously even though they were getting cold. Be able to bend and stretch now so that you can get what you want later. Even her eyes were pitiful, and she didn't dare to reveal any sinister emotions. She knew that her second brother's consciousness was very powerful, and if anything was wrong with her, he would fall into his consciousness. The four of them had no choice but to take her into the Nine Nether Forest. Just after entering the Juya forest, Mrsu stayed by Mushue's side and did not give her a chance to get close to Mujukan. The journey was uneventful. They went directly to the world of cultivating immortals from the underground passage. Juyo City, at the door of Yu's house, Yu Heiran opened the door, and 5 people filed in. As soon as he entered the door, Mujukan searched the yard with his consciousness, and Yuan happened to be walking in the yard. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 345. Chapter 345 Learned. As soon as she turned around, she saw a group of people at the door. Yuan was obviously stunned for a moment and walked toward them with a puffy belly. Mujukan rushed over and hugged her tightly. "Oh, let go, you're strangling me to death." Yuan was squeezed tightly by him, which pressed against his stomach and felt uncomfortable, so he pushed him away with all his strength. Mujukan was so excited that he never thought about her big belly. He quickly said, "Waner, I'm sorry, I was too excited at the moment." Then he hugged her gently. Yuan smelled the familiar scent on his body and felt inexplicably relieved. "Ahem, cough, cough, girl Waner, thank you for your hard work." Mrsu walked over and coughed a few times. They were still outside, and the young couple didn't even notice that anyone else was there. Mujukan let go of Yuan embarrassedly. Yuan glared at him and replied quickly, "Mom, I'm not working hard, you are working hard. Go and take a rest." Mrsu shook her head and said, "It's not hard, mother. Chenner can help Waner go back." "Yes, Xiao Sier, if you have anything to say, please say it behind closed doors." Yu Heiran and Uncle Mu also came over and winked at her. "Dad, big brother," Yuan shouted. "Well, girl Waner, you go back. Chenner is back. It's up to you to take care of him." Uncle Mu's expression was very serious. "Okay," Yuan nodded slightly, the smile on her face getting a little thicker. Only Mushue stood still at the door, staring viciously at Yuan's belly. At this time, she really pounced on her and sprayed her with poison. Let's see how proud she is, and the little in her belly. Yuan sensed it immediately. She looked back and saw Mushue still standing at the door. Why did Mugzio come here? Why did she stand still at the door? Yuan asked strangely. She was certain that the deep malice she had just sensed was the creepy feeling at the door. Is she hallucinating? Impossible. She knows her consciousness better than anyone else, but she just doesn't know what's going on. She will ask Mujukan later when she goes back. Looking at that Mugzio's posture, he is definitely not a kind person. Mrsu also looked back and saw that Mushue was still standing there. She said to Yuan in a calm tone, "We have brought her safely to the world of immortality. We don't have to deal with her anymore. Especially you, don't do this." Yuan nodded in response. "Chenner, please help Waner go in. Your father and I will make our own arrangements," Mrsu said again. Looking at Mugzio's appearance, "I'm afraid that something will happen to her later." Mujukan nodded and said to Yu Heiran, "Brother, I'm sorry to bother you." Yu Heiran waved his hand, "What's the trouble? Go back quickly." Yu Heiran looked at Yuan's big belly with fear, as if he was afraid that he might accidentally drop it. "It's only been a month since we last met, and Xiao Sier's belly has grown so much." Mujukan supported Yuan and nodded towards the three of them and entered the house. In the room, Yuan was sitting on the bed, holding her belly with both hands. Then she asked, "Mujukan, what's going on with Mugzio? Her eyes look like a poisonous snake." Mujukan moved the stool over and gently put her legs on him, making her feel comfortable before saying, "I feel ashamed to say this. This happened because of me, but Wanner can rest assured that I have done something sorry for you. Yuan frowned when she heard this. What did Mujukan say? Mujukan saw her frowning and said quickly, Wanner, that Mu Shui is not my second uncle's biological daughter. After she found out, she had evil thoughts about me. How is this possible? She was shocked when she found out. Indeed, when Mrsu told him the truth, he was stunned and speechless. From then on, he paid attention to it all the time. Then why is she here? Yuan asked. I followed her here secretly. I have to follow her to the Juya forest to the death. Dad has no choice but to take her with him, Mujukan explained again. How did you feel after you went back? Is it better or worse again? Mujukan thought for a moment and said, I'm much better. As long as I don't practice, I'll be fine. Wanner, I've also thought about it. According to my temperament, this kind of thing is impossible to happen, but it happened. You know how much Grandpa hopes that our Mu family can regain its former glory. Yuan was also pondering. Mujukan had a strong mind, so why did his inner demons invade him all of a sudden, and suddenly his mood was so bad? How could such nonsense happen all day long? This is not normal no matter how you look at it. Thinking of Mixio's eyes, those eyes were quenched with poison, as if he wanted to kill her. She was startled and said hurriedly, Mujukan, go and ask your elder brother to come over. Call me brother, Mujukan was confused. Call him brother to take care of him. He looked at her hurriedly, and when he saw that there was no sign of anger in her eyes, he felt relieved, put her legs on the stool, and went out uneasily. Xiao Sier, what do you want to do with your elder brother? Yu Heiran asked as soon as he entered the room. Brother, Mujukan just told me about Mu Shui. I don't want there to be a time bomb around me, and I'm inconvenient now. You can take her to a hotel farther away later and don't allow her to enter our yard. Here, remember to activate the formation every day. It wasn't that she was a soldier, but that Mu Shui gave her a really bad feeling. Yu Heiran nodded, of course, as long as it was Xiao Sier's request, he must satisfy it. As for Mixio's affairs, he knew a little bit, but it was unbelievable when he thought about it. Well, I'll take care of it now. Don't worry, Mujukan, take good care of Xiao Sier. It's best to cook what Xiao Sier eats in the space, and don't do anything to others. Yu Heiran gave another instruction before leaving. The two nodded. Mujukan was half relieved, but he knew the other half. Let's go to our parents' place, Yuan said. No, no, they have brought everything themselves. Yuan glanced at him and said, it doesn't matter. When I have nothing to do, I walk in the yard every day. Mujukan immediately wilted and said, okay. After Yu Heiran took Mu Shui away, Mujukan helped Yuan to Mrsu's yard. Hey, Wanner, why are you here? When Mrsu saw the two of them entering the yard, she quickly came over to help Yuan. Yuan smiled at her, I couldn't come here because Mixio was here before. Mom, are you okay over there? Mrsu held her hand and said gently, we are all very well. You are still worried about us even though you are like this. Just take care of the child in your belly. Don't worry about anything else. We are here for everything. Huh? Wanner, why is your belly so big? Mrsu then took a closer look. Dad, Mom, I'm pregnant with twins, Yuan smiled softly. Twins, three voices asked in unison. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 346. Chapter 346 Two Boys. Well, two boys, Yuan added. Ah. God, hurry up, Chenner helps Wanner sit down. Hurry up, old man, get a soft stool. Mrsu reacted quickly and even ordered the father and son, who were still dumbfounded. Haha, little girl Wanner, just take good care of your baby. Uncle Mew placed the stool in a cheerful mood and said cheerfully. Ouch, my god, Uncle Mew is so happy that he is pregnant with 2 grandsons this time. The most excited person was Mujukin. He hurriedly helped Yuan sit down, and then moved around her in circles with his hands and feet. Seeing Yuan couldn't help but smile, she said, well, I know, parents. We came here just to tell you. If you need anything here, you can contact my elder brother and Xiaoliu. I will enter later. There's something going on in the space. So as not to worry about not seeing her. Mrsu took her hand and took a look. Yes, the blood was good and the flesh was plump. She said gently, okay, you guys go back and have a rest. Running around like this. What need do we 2 old guys have? What, everything is in your dad's storage bag, don't worry about us 2 old guys. Yuan, okay, we're going back. Uncle Mew and Mrsu nodded repeatedly. Mujukin supported Yuan and slowly returned to their room. After asking him to activate the formation, the 2 entered the space. After Mrsu watched the 2 of them enter the house, she also went inside. Hee, old man, our Wanner is very capable. You can buy me some fine cotton later. I have to make some clothes for our 2 eldest grandsons. The baby still needs to wear fine cotton. Okay, old lady, let's see what else there is. I'll buy them all in a moment, Uncle Mew said with a smile, stroking his beard with one hand. Okay, I'll give you a list later, Mrsu said and went to write something. Mujukin, you lie down on the bed first, and I'll check your body, Yuan said to Mujukin as soon as he entered the space. He said he would show it to him last time, but he didn't show it to him. A time when you have experienced a demonic tribulation and a problem with your state of mind. This is not a coincidence at all. There are not so many coincidences in the world. Since she had never heard about Mu Shui before, she would not have thought that Mujukin's body had been tampered with. But what has Yuan seen of the monk's endless methods? Always check her before she can rest assured that her man is the only one who feels pain. Mujukin lay down on the bed obediently this time. Yuan was also sitting on the edge of the bed, and Mujukin took the opportunity to hold her hand. Yuan let him pull her, released her consciousness, and checked his sea of consciousness inch by inch. Then all the way down. Her heart skipped a beat when her heart was checked. Looking carefully with his spiritual sense, he didn't see anything. So she continued to look down. After checking her whole body, nothing was found. She refused to give up and checked again. Yu Hao was puzzled. When his consciousness saw Mujukin's heart just now, her heart seemed to skip a beat. She was sure she felt nothing wrong. Her consciousness stirred, and she looked at her heart. She didn't believe it was nothing. She must have overlooked something. Why does Mojujhan's heart have to be redder? Yuan immediately checked it again with her consciousness. Sure enough, Mujukin's heart was redder, and the heartbeat frequency was slower than her own. She moved her hand, and the little snake appeared in front of her. Master, do you want to see me? Look at what's wrong with Mujukin's heart. Wanner, you said there is something wrong with my heart? Why haven't I felt it? Mujukin opened his eyes and asked. The problems that monks have are usually related to the sea of consciousness. How can they have heart problems like ordinary people? If there is a heart problem, wouldn't a pill solve the problem? Lie down, don't say anything, and let the little snake take a look first. Mujukin had no choice but to close his eyes obediently. The little snake's consciousness entered Mujukin's heart, and as expected, a disgusting aura hit his face. The little snake quickly withdrew his consciousness. Master, there is something wrong with your man's heart. There is a nasty smell, but I don't know what it is. It's not poison. No poison can escape its consciousness. Yuan nodded, indicating that he understood. She believes that the little snake said that it has now returned to the 5th level, its strength has increased a little, and it has also recovered a lot of its previous memories. It doesn't even know what it is, so they don't even know what it is. Little snake, go out for a run and find Mixu in the inn in the city. Keep an eye on her. I'm sure this thing has something to do with her. Come back and tell me if anything happens. Yuan immediately sent a message to Little Snake. The little snake nodded its head. So Yuan moved her consciousness and moved the little snake out. Mujukin slowly opened his eyes and asked in disbelief, Waner, is it really that there is something wrong with my heart? Yuan nodded towards him, held his hand tightly and said, there is something wrong, but it's not fatal. It's probably the medicine that affects your mood. I asked Little Snake to check it out, don't worry. Mujukin seemed to have a sudden realization, no wonder, I also doubted it. I didn't have such a temperament before, but suddenly I don't even recognize myself anymore. At the same time, he was deep in thought, always thinking in his mind, when had he been in close contact with someone without him discovering it? From the great Yan Empire to the Xianling continent, and then to this world of cultivating immortals, all the people they came into contact with were their own people. Everyone has a chance to attack him, but no one will attack him. But there is only one Mixue. He remembered that when he returned from the world of cultivating immortals, Mu Shui seemed to know the result. From the first day he returned, she was in a good mood and brought him meals every day. He didn't know when he had such a good relationship with this sister, and he was still wondering. Now that I think about it carefully, there are actually traces to follow. It seems that when the beast tide came in Xianling continent, Mixue always approached him intentionally or unintentionally. At that time, she felt that she was afraid and didn't think much about it at all. He remembered that when he first fell into the inner demon, he was still in this space. At that time, he strongly wanted Waner, but was rejected by Waner. At that time, he felt an inexplicable resentment in his heart. The heart seems to be cracked and something is missing. It is estimated that the effect of the drug took effect at that time, but it is hard to say when the drug was administered. When he was in Haoyu sect, it was so close to Fangxi, and Mu Shui often went out to practice, so it was not surprising that he had adventures. The people of Xiuxian are endless, making you insulted, and in front of those who are not defensive. Why? Mujukin let out a long sigh, and looked at his heart with his consciousness. Before, there was nothing there, but now, he felt uncomfortable. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 347. Chapter 347 Which Medicine? Mujukin sighed deeply again, as long as it does not affect his life, it will be fine. Now he is in the golden elixir stage. A monk in the golden elixir stage has a lifespan of 600 years. He is not yet 100 years old, and 600 years is enough. If nothing happens, I can stay with the three of them for 500 years. Having figured it out, I felt better. Waner, what do you want to eat tonight? I'll cook it for you. Make me a soup and bake some barbecue. The two little guys love to absorb it. They will definitely be two snack foodies in the future. When talking about the two little guys, Yuan's voice was particularly gentle at this time. Okay, I will do it for you every day from now on. When Mujukin saw her like this, he couldn't help but hug her gently, and then let go after a long time. After helping her lie down, she went to the kitchen to make food. Yuan did feel a little sleepy after walking around outside. After Mujukin left, she closed her eyes and fell asleep. By the time Mujukin came back with the fragrant barbecue, Yuan was sleeping soundly. Mujukin put the tray on the table, sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Yuan quietly. Her face, which was sleeping peacefully, lost the indifference of the past, and her brows were filled with maternal warmth. He couldn't help but gently caress her cheek. At this time, he had a feeling of peace and quiet in the years. I don't know how long Wanner will sleep for. Mujukin is curled up on the end of the bed, trying to practice. It was a pity that as soon as he started to use the technique, the disgust in his heart came back. Mujukin had to stop, his brows were knotted, and he couldn't calm down his mood for a long time. After a long time, Mujukin took a deep breath and released his consciousness to look at his heart. Even though the root cause of the disease was found and it was not fatal, he still hoped that the root cause of the disease could be eradicated. It is true that he still has 500 years to live with the three of them, mother and son, but a lot of things can happen in 500 years. Perhaps they had already ascended and left, leaving him alone. It makes me feel sick just thinking about it. What kind of unreasonable disaster did he suffer? If Little Snake finds out that it was really Mixu who did it, he will definitely not let her go. How can there be such a disgusting woman in the world? He had never thought about someone taking away Mixu's body before. When she was not prepared, he personally checked her spirit. Although the soul of the foundation building monk does not have spiritual consciousness, everyone's aura is different. If someone takes away the body, the aura of the soul will not be that of the original body, and Mixu will still be her own breath. It is indeed Mixu himself. At this moment, Mixu was sitting in the inn room, her face twisted like an old witch. His face was livid, his eyes were fierce, and his body was shaking with anger. She grabbed the teacup on the table and smashed it to the ground. Hateful, then Yu Heiran was really hateful. He sent her here to open a room and left immediately. No matter how much she begged him, he refused to let her return to the house. No matter how she pretended to be weak and pitiful, even the innkeeper and the monks who lived in the inn couldn't stand it. He still wouldn't let go and simply dumped her. He shook his sleeves as if he were shaking something dirty. He shook them a few times and left. Does she just think that all men in the world are so hard-hearted? Why can't every man seem to see the goodness in her? She knew that after coming here, she didn't even have to think about going back to Yuzhai. Is this how people just watch helplessly as that gives birth to that bitch? Mixu was going crazy at this time, thinking that she hadn't even given the second dose of medicine yet, so she didn't even have a chance. What is she going to do now? When the little snake arrived, it happened to be walking with Yu Heiran one after another. It didn't need to go out of its way to find it. It walked directly through the formation to Mu Shui's room, and happened to see her expression just now. The little snake was so frightened that she vomited her guts out. Mom, this woman was so gentle and lovely before, why has she become so scary now? Ever since she was contracted by Yuan, I have been following her and I have never seen her lose her temper like this. It believes that women in the world should be as calm as Yuan, not going crazy or losing their minds when things happen. But Mixu's expression was too ferocious, and it was really frightening at first sight. After being frightened, the business still had to be done. It quietly released its spiritual consciousness and approached Mixu. When its spiritual consciousness came close to Mixu, there was immediately an unpleasant smell. Snort. Sure enough, this woman was responsible for one of the annoying auras on Mujukin's body. The little snake's consciousness moved and immediately covered Mixu in the barrier. Then a force of pressure pressed directly on Mixu. Mixu, who was in a rage, felt a powerful force of pressure pressing on her, and she subconsciously used her spiritual power to block it. How could the coercion of Little Snake's 5th level strength be resisted by her little foundation builder? In just one breath, all the bones in her body were crushed, but she wouldn't die in a short time. You vicious woman, it's really you who poisoned Mujukin. The little snake's small body flashed in front of Mu Shui. If Mujukin and the others didn't take action to deal with her, the majestic beast would be afraid of nothing. It won't be here today. Kill her, will it still be the mythical beast Vine Snake? Is it you, Mixio collapsed weakly on the ground. When she saw clearly that it was a little snake, despair showed in her eyes. Who doesn't know that the little snake is strong and ferocious, and more importantly, it is Yuan's spiritual pet? If she falls into its hands, firstly, she will be exposed, and secondly, she will die miserably. It's me. You are so brave. You dare to attack the master's man. You really think you have lived too long? Tell me, what disgusting thing did you give Mujukan? You don't have to say it, but your end must be miserable. After the little snake finished speaking, she threw her storage bag into the internal space in disgust. It was afraid of what tricks this vicious woman would play, so it collected the storage bag first. Sure enough, when Mixio saw the storage bag being collected, she gasped a few times and said urgently, "Little snake, please give me the storage bag. I'll tell you everything. I have the antidote. TCH, I gave it to you, and you won't even talk about it. My patience is limited, and if you continue to talk nonsense, you will be killed immediately." It was rare for a little snake to pretend to be a snake with her. Okay, let me tell you. It's a witch medicine called Lixin powder. It's neither fatal nor fatal. It can only cause the monks to have mental problems. I have the antidote. Little snake, give me the storage bag and I'll give it to you. Get the antidote. Mixio was really anxious. She immediately told what it was, and then coaxed the little snake to give her the storage bag. Just give her the storage bag, Return a little snake and make you a dead snake. But her face was not revealing at all, and she looked at the little snake pitifully. The little snake looked at her with goosebumps all over its skin. Whoosh! The little snake flew away. It stayed away from her. Mother, fortunately it is a snake and not a man, otherwise I would have been heartbroken by her pitiful look. If you don't tell me, then I'll take you back and hand you over to your master. After the little snake finished speaking, she was about to stun her. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 348. Chapter 348 Mushue's Death. Tell me about it. After I said it, the first time I gave the medicine to my second brother was in Xianling continent. I didn't take it again after that. Really, I wanted to take it a second time, but I didn't find the chance. Musui, I heard that I was going to take her back and give her to Yuan, so I would have to meet her second brother. She couldn't face her second brother's cold eyes and disgusted look on her. Continue, the little snake said. The medicine needs to be administered 3 times before it is fully effective, so little snake, my second brother will be fine. As time goes by, he is a monk and will recover without taking the medicine. It just takes a long time. Really, little snake, I don't have it. I have never wanted to kill my second brother. I have been particularly fond of my second brother since I was a child. At that time, I thought it was a love between brother and sister. But when I found out that my second brother was not related by blood, this is the method I thought of. Your master will ascend sooner or later. I just want to keep my second brother with me for the rest of my life. Mixio was really sad and cried this time, but she had no regrets. Shameless, the little snake didn't even know what to say. They are still a white-eyed wolf, and their master never treats them poorly. The little snake now knows that the witch medicine is not fatal, and it doesn't matter whether there is an antidote or not. This woman is very vicious, and they don't even know she was tampering with the antidote. It's better to kill this woman. Neither the master nor Mujukan is suitable to take action, so let him do it. The little snake looked at her with disgust, spit out a mouthful of venom and hit Mixio. Mixio was still lying on the ground whining and crying. She was hit by the snake's venom off guard. She looked at the snake in horror. The venom entered her body, and her whole body was in pain like fire. She was stunned. The little snake really poisoned her. She couldn't believe it, and it was natural. She was dying. She opened her mouth to say something, but her consciousness was blurred and she was dead in an instant. In a moment, it turned into a pool of blood, and in another moment, even the ground was restored to its original state. Humph, it's so easy for you to die so cheaply. The little snake arrogantly flicked its head and disappeared with a whoosh sound. It still had to report to its master. In the space, Mujukin was wandering and thinking wildly. Yuan opened her eyes and saw him looking blank. Mujukin, what are you doing? Yuan shouted. Huh? Wanner woke up and didn't think about anything. Mujukin quickly got out of bed and helped her sit up. His eyes were fixed on her big belly. He was worried that the belly would burst when she was about to give birth. It looked so scary now. It's only been a little over 8 months and it's already like this. Sometimes he really wants to reach out and touch it, but what should he do if he is afraid that he will touch his belly without knowing the importance? Thinking about it, I resisted the urge to touch it. I'll feed her, Wanner, don't move. Mujukin threw her legs out and prepared to get out of bed. He held her down gently and took the soup bowl from the table. Lie down and don't move. I'll feed you. Just tell me what you want to eat. As he spoke, Mujukin took a spoonful of the white, fragrant soup and put it to her mouth. Yuan really didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so being pregnant was like a heavy casualty. Seeing his nervous look, she felt warm in her heart. Why? Forget it, it's rare for him to be a filial man. It's a rare opportunity for him to show off. As a father, he has been absent for a few months, so he should do something for their mother and son. So Yuan was fed with peace of mind. Mujukin finished feeding a large pot of stew, a large plate of barbecue weighing 10 kilograms, and 2 large bowls of food before he was full. Mujukin was really surprised by Yuan's appetite. At the same time, he secretly cursed himself for being such a bastard. Fortunately, Wanner didn't care about him. If it were him, he might not have the stomach to tolerate his nonsense. After eating, Yuan could only put her legs down and rest them on the edge of the bed to refine and absorb. Now she couldn't cross her legs. Mujukin was afraid that her legs would be numb, so he chopped 2 wooden stakes and put cushions on them for her feet to step on. Yuan felt a little more heartwarming. As expected, only those who care about her can think of it. She gave him a touching smile. Mujukin blamed himself for a while. After she had finished refining the food she had eaten, she drank a small bottle of Divine Soul liquid. Mujukin watched her operation silently. He knew in his heart that these 2 boys would not be weak in consciousness after they were born. Fortunately, Wanner can afford it. After mother and son had eaten and drank enough, Yuan said to Mujukin, who was looking blankly in front of him, I will go into the red earth to meditate later, and check whether there is anything similar in Huang Qiuying's memory, see what it is. Mujukin waved his hand and said, don't worry, too much time has passed. Didn't you let the little snake go? Wait until the little snake finds out what it is. Yuan glared at him, feeling clearly extremely anxious, duplicitous, and stupid. How can she be tired in her space? I don't know when it will come back. It's just a matter of consciousness in space, so don't worry. Mujukin lost his temper immediately when he glared at him, so he nodded. So Yuan disappeared on the bed with a flash of consciousness, and when she reappeared, she was already next to the black pool. She sat directly on the black pool and took a deep breath of the thick soul power before closing her eyes and searching for Huang Qiuying's memories in her mind. After going through everything in her mind from childhood to adulthood, she really found some clues. In Huang Qiuying's memory, in the world of cultivating immortals, a monk generally refers to a person who cultivates, a person who transcends ordinary people. Monks include Taoist cultivators, demonic cultivators, Buddhist cultivators, demon cultivators, ghost cultivators, witch cultivators, evil cultivators. Tao cultivators are like their orthodox immortal cultivation methods, which use the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to strengthen themselves. Magic cultivators are people who absorb demonic energy to practice. Of course, they are different from Tao cultivators since ancient times. The forces are two-sided, so Taoism is both good and evil. Buddhist cultivation, of course, everyone is practicing Buddhism. Yaoxiu refers to monsters that take on the form of humans. There are also special techniques used by humans to practice demon cultivators. These types of demon cultivators are also called demon cultivators. In the world of immortality, ghost cultivators generally refer to those who absorb ghost energy and death energy to practice cultivation, and the ghosts of monks who have not yet left their souls. Witch cultivators are a very rare type of monks. Most of them exist in one race. The most common type is the hermit race, which does not move around in the world. This kind of poison or spell cast by a monk cannot be solved by other monks. There is also a kind of evil cultivator. This kind of people are Taoist cultivators who want to disappear. The way they practice is either drinking human blood or absorbing the spiritual power of other monks, to cultivate for themselves. This kind of evil cultivator has cruel and endless methods, which is the most intolerable to other cultivators. Based on the above analysis, Mujukin's heart should have been injured by witchcraft. The body of a Taoist cultivator contains all spiritual power. If it were the hands of demonic, ghostly, or evil cultivators, the body would have been eroded by these qi, and it would not be fine. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 349. Chapter 349. The antidote is obtained. This is the first time Yuan has heard of the word wuxiu, let alone what to do further. We can only find out when the little snake comes back. I hope it can bring good news. I don't know if little snake has found anything useful after being here for so long. Yuan frowned and sat on the black pool, thinking wildly. She didn't know how to tell Mujukin about the result. The little snake is back. Just when Yuan was frowning, the little snake sent a special message. Yuan appeared outside the house with a flash of consciousness, opened the formation, and the little snake came in quickly. Yuan took it back to space. Master, things are clear, the little snake said as soon as he entered the space. Little snake, please tell me quickly. Mujukin had been feeling uneasy, but when he suddenly saw Yuan's master and servant coming back, he couldn't help but laugh and urged the little snake. If you can solve it, of course you are willing to solve it. If there is always a bomb in your heart, even the calmest person will not be able to remain calm. Did I say that? The little snake looked at Yuan. Say, Yuan nodded. Little snake, the owner is indeed the one under Mixia called Na Sha Lixin powder, which is a kind of witch medicine. She told me that this Lixin powder. The little snake finished everything Mixia told her in one breath, threw her storage bag to Yuan, and said, Master, Mixia was killed by me. Mujukin was still immersed in the thought that the Lixin powder had only been administered once, not the next 2 times, and it would be cured without medicine in the future. He ignored what the little snake said that Mu Shui had been killed by it. He hugged Yuan happily and buried his head in her neck silently, without using any force of course. Yuan was hanging on her, and she was so clumsy in pregnancy that she was speechless. She could not imagine how those beer belly days had passed in her previous life. Just kill him, you can't keep this kind of person for the new year, Yuan said to Xiaoxi calmly, then patted Mujukin and said, your sister is dead, are you so sad? What girl is dead? Mujukin looked at the lump in his arms in confusion. Mixia. If you die, you will die. Why should you be sad? Does he need to be sad? Shouldn't he clap his hands? Oh, that's the misunderstanding. Come on, Let's take a look at your sister's storage bag. Yuan knew that this guy was confused, so he probably didn't hear what the little snake said behind him. She made a gesture to pour out the contents of the storage bag. Let's fall outside. Mujukin stopped her in time, picked her up and walked out of the wooden house, and put her on a chair in front of the wooden house. Then his spiritual consciousness went into the storage bag and took a look. After making sure that there was nothing harmful, he dumped the things on the table. 3 pairs of eyes looked at the things on the table, and they were so surprised that they were speechless for a moment. Because 80% of the things in it have been used by Yuan before. Clothes, daily necessities, and many elixirs. The soil on the elixirs is the soil in the space. This simply overturned her understanding of Mugxiu, and it secretly messed with so many things about her. This Mu Shui's behavior is simply awesome. Those who live in her, use her, and eat her are nothing, but they actually steal her things. It would be better if this man died. If he didn't die, Yuan didn't dare to think how much trouble Mugxiu would cause in the future. Mujukin was blushing to the very bottom of his ears at this moment. No matter what, Mu Shui was always a child of their Mu family, and everything he said and did was labeled by the Mu family. He did not expect that there was such a person behind Mugxiu. He glanced at Yuan secretly and saw that she had a calm look on her face and was not angry with him, so she felt relieved quietly. But this matter is so bad, I'd better tell my grandpa, parents, and second uncle about it in the future. In case it was discovered that Mu Shui was killed, and I didn't know that the inside story would be born again. It also let them know that Mu Shui deserved his own fault and deserved his death. Does this kind of person really deserve to die? Just like Wanner said, don't kill him and keep him for the new year. Save it to cause trouble for them in the future. Especially regarding Wanner's space, as long as the news is released, you can imagine the disaster they will face. Mujukin's heart beat loudly when he thought of this, and he was also glad that the little snake acted early. He glanced at the little snake gratefully. If they were to kill her, they didn't know if they could afford it. The little snake knew what Mujukin meant, and it raised its head proudly, a pot of barbecue. Okay, Mujukin readily agreed. Yuan glanced at them without saying a word and continued to look at those things. She asked Mujukin to sort out the things Mu Shui had used by categories. All the clothes she had worn and the tableware she had used were sold, and they could be exchanged for some spiritual stones. Then it was time to clean up the bottles and jars. The jars and jars were easy to clean up. They were all pills, and Mujukin took them to the market to sell them. Wanner, how are these bottles different? Mujukin cleaned 5 different bottles from the bottles. Don't open it yet, it might be the witchcraft medicine that Mu Shui mentioned first. Check the jade tube to see if there is anything about the witchcraft medicine. Yuan quickly stopped Mujukin from opening the bottle cap. Good. Mujukin nodded, put the bottles aside, and then picked up the jade tube to check it out. After half a stick of incense, sure enough, there was a jade slip with detailed records of the 5 witchcraft medicines. He was overjoyed and read about Lixinsan carefully. After reading it, he confirmed that Mugxiu did not lie to the little snake, and it was indeed not fatal. Moreover, the poisoning was less than 3 times, and it could be cured without medicine over time. If you want to recover quickly, you can also prepare an antidote according to the characteristics of each poison. He immediately looked at all the remaining elixir bottles, and sure enough, 5 of them contained powdered medicines of different colors. He picked out one of the green bottles and checked it with his spiritual consciousness. Sure enough, as soon as he smelled the scent, his heart felt an indescribable feeling of comfort. Wanner, look, this is the antidote. Mujukin excitedly handed it to Yuan. Yuan took the jade bottle and looked at it. Sure enough, it contained a green powder, but it had no spiritual power at all. She nodded and said to Mujukin, then you go and detoxify it first. The sooner you detoxify, the better. Mujukin nodded and put the things on the table into his storage bag. Then you sit down here, and I'll make you something to eat before I go to retreat. Okay, go ahead and I'll sit here for a while. Mujukin happily walked away immediately. Even his walking momentum returned to his previous state, and his slender figure became taller and taller. Yuan looked at his back and was happy for him, finally going crazy. The most difficult thing for a monk to accept is that he can no longer continue to practice. The road to immortality has just begun, and he ends up being stuck in a dilemma halfway. This feeling is something that ordinary people cannot experience firsthand. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 350. Chapter 350 Detoxification. Yuan's came out of the space, but it was already dark outside, so she walked around casually in the small courtyard. Now that her belly is getting bigger, everyone is worried that she won't be allowed to walk around alone, and she will have to be accompanied by someone. Yuan is not the case. Pregnant people should move around more, otherwise it is easy to have dystocia during childbirth. It does not mean that monks have difficulties in giving birth. Monks giving birth are no different from ordinary people. Yuan walked outside for half an hour before returning to the space. In the space wooden house, Mujukin's prepared food has been placed on the table, but he is not there, so there is no need to think that he must have gone to detoxify. After Yuan ate by herself, she had enough space to eat, so she lay down and slept with her clothes on. After waiting one night, I believe Mujukin has almost cured the poison in the space. In the space, Mujukin swallowed the green medicinal powder. When the medicinal powder entered his mouth, it turned into medicinal power and went straight to his heart to wrap it. Waves of red mist gradually emitted from Fei Hong's heart. When Mujukin saw this, he immediately used his spiritual power to expel it from his body. This happens over and over again. The next day, Yuan was having breakfast when Xiaoliu came over. Before she even entered the house, she heard her shouting, "Fourth sister, I heard that my brother-in-law is back. Where is he?" Looked around and there was no one in the room. "Stop looking, your brother-in-law is in the space. Sit down, do you want some breakfast?" Xiaolu waved his hand and said, "No, I have to go to Fangxi to see if I can pick up some leeks today." After finishing speaking, she took a jade box and placed it in front of Yuan. This is what Yuan told her. In such a large market, there are many monks coming and going every day. They have to sell everything. Sometimes you can really find something missing. Yuan opened the jade box, and inside lay the blue crystal grass, the main medicine in the Zhuja Yingdan. This elixir is a water elixir that grows in the sea. It's just that this one is not very old now, only 10 years at most. It needs to be cultivated for thousands of years before it can be used. No wonder Xiaoliu picked up this leek. Mujukin has reached the golden elixir Dzogchen level and is now detoxified. After a few more decades of polishing, babies can be born. At that time, the blue crystal grass was also mature. There is still one last elixir left, the ice crystal flower. Mujukin will have to find this one by himself. "How is fourth sister? Can I use this elixir?" Seeing Yuan's delay in speaking, Xiaolu thought she was dissatisfied with the elixir. At that time, many people in the market were gathered around this elixir. Although it was a rare blue crystal grass, the age was too low, so everyone basically left after looking at it. Leave a few family disciples with her. She finally bought it and planted the elixir in the fourth sister's space. The 1,000-year-old elixir was not just a matter of decades. It works, it's so useful. Xiaoliu will keep up the good work in the future. Yuan nodded repeatedly, not to destroy Xiaoliu's remaining enthusiasm. "Is there any reward?" Xiaolu stretched out her paw. Yuan rolled her eyes at her and threw a small wine bottle to her, knowing that she was thinking about her monkey wine. Xiaolu grabbed the small wine bottle and ran away. Yuan shook her head and looked at her running figure fondly. This heartless person thought that a trip to Julia Forest would be a bit mature. This comfortable life has only passed for more than half a year, and it has changed back to the way it was before. Why? What a headache. It seems that I need to talk to Shitu and ask him to take Xiaoliu out for some experience. The three brothers of Wu Shen, Xiao Wu, Xiao Qi, and others went to Juya Forest every day or teamed up with other monks to do tasks in the city. They never stopped. This half year has just passed, and my cultivation level has increased again. Look at Xiaoliu again, alas. Yuan finished her meal and packed up, and was about to go out for a walk when Mrsu came over. Have Wanner had breakfast? Mrsu asked her with a smile. Yuan wanted to get up but Mrsu stopped her. She took out a list and put it in front of her. Look at what's missing from this list. I'm going to ask your dad to go out and buy it tomorrow and today, along with 2 little things, make some clothes or something. Yuan picked it up and looked at it. All the items above were needed by the baby after birth. She just remembered that the baby would need food, drink, and diarrhea after it was born. She had never thought of this at all. The monks are used to it, so they never thought that a monk would give birth to a child, and the child would need these things. Fortunately, Mrsu came over. She glanced at Mrsu gratefully and said, "Mom, just buy what you see above. Buy whatever you think of. We don't have much experience and don't know what to use. Fortunately, you guys are here." Mrsu felt sweet in her heart, and even smiled after hearing Yuan's words. She was also worried that Wanner was prepared or disliked her, but she didn't know that this child was not prepared for anything. "Okay, mother, give these to your father to buy first. You sit here and don't move. Mother will come when she goes, and she will accompany you around the yard when she comes back. Pregnancy means moving around a lot, and you will suffer the consequences when the baby is born. It's you." Mrsu picked up the list and patted her back gently. "Okay, thank you, mother." Yuan thanked her from the bottom of her heart. As expected, this mother-in-law is really considerate. Mrsu nodded and walked out quickly with the list. Yuan held her belly and walked outside the house. As soon as she went out, Mrsu ran over and immediately stepped forward to help her. "Why don't you wait for me?" Mrsu said, looking at her belly worriedly. "Yuan, it's okay, it's just a few steps away." "Where's Chen'er?" She came twice but didn't see her son. "He is in seclusion to detoxify." "Detoxification? What kind of poison? Is something wrong with Chen'er?" Mrsu was stunned. She looked at Yuan with a look of shock and worry. Suddenly, his speaking ability increased several times. Yuan waved her hand and said, "Mixia gave it to him before. It was a witch medicine. Now that I have found the antidote, I think the cure is almost done by now. Don't worry, mother." "Oh, I'm so scared. Why did that woman become like this?" Mrsu was stunned again, and she said angrily. "Don't let her in the future. It's better not to have contact with such people." Mrsu warned again, what if she didn't like the child and poisoned her grandson? If this vicious woman had known about it, she would have asked her to hand over the antidote, and Chen'er would not have had any conflicts with her daughter-in-law. She is dead and nothing like this will happen again. "Ah! Dead? How did you die?" Mrsu was stunned again, and she was shocked when she heard the explosion. She looked at Yuan, who was indifferent, as if she was saying that the weather is so sunny today. She was quite frightened today, but fortunately it was a false alarm in the end. She also knew that although these things were frightening, they did not have any fatal consequences, otherwise Wanner would not have told her these things. It was to let her know that Mu Shui deserved her death and Wanner was not to blame. End of this chapter.